like the illustration because that story appears nowhere in the Bible. This is not a biblical story. The last thing you're looking for is a helicopter. That's where the story goes. They said that a helicopter flies over to try to rescue him. There were no helicopters in biblical times.
I was going to say that. I was like, wait.
I'm like, there's a military ship?
But this is my point. No, but it's fine though. I let it go because this is the point. Is that there are a lot of things like that where because Western civilization is, and that's why I gave you so much grief earlier. Western civilization is founded on these biblical principles. These are the things that we miss. When we say things like, I don't need a Bible, or I don't need a religion to come along and tell me what's right and wrong, you can't be separated from it. You've been raised in a culture that remember the fish in the water that you swim in? It's the water that you swim in. You cannot, if you ask the fish, how's the water? The fish is like, what do you mean the water? Because they're born into it. They can't see themselves as separate from it. You're raised in a tradition in the Western world that is so intricately connected to that it's easier for us to say, I don't need a religion to tell me not to murder and not to steal and not to... No, but you do. This is the whole point of it, is that this is human nature to not do what it says. Human nature is, in fact, to steal and to murder and so forth. But we're so deeply entrenched in the tradition that we don't even realize that it's the water that we're swimming in. Have you guys heard that God's dead before?
I've heard it before.
Yeah.
Some dude keeps yelling at me.
The question we can, yes. Whatever, there's no rules. God is dead.
I mean, would you be concerned?
This phrase that God is dead, it comes from Friedrich Nietzsche, where I think we might be looking at that next. But the idea of the death of God, Nietzsche is a savage critic of Christianity, as some of you sound like you are as well. But he points out, he makes this comment that God is dead. And what he means by that is that in the past we had a need for God to explain things. How did the world get here? How do the weather patterns exist the way they do? Why is there evil in the world? Why is there good in the world? And I think that's the question that we fail to ask. If there is a God, then why is there evil? But I guess a better question to ask is that if there is no God, how is there any good in the world at all? Because by and large, when we say things like, I don't need a religion to tell me how to behave and how not to behave, well, we went for a very long time with religions that said it was okay to do those things. And I guess the question is, how did that work out for us as human beings? We might say we don't need those things, but they are certainly, like I said, infused in us in ways that we can't quite understand. It's kind of like if I ask you why you behave the way that you behave, you'd have to go back way into your childhood to points of unconscious memories that shape who you are today and why you are the way that you are today. It doesn't do just to say, oh, I choose to be how I am. Perhaps, but you're making that choice based off of a very specific personality set that was defined before you were consciously defining yourself. In other words, a lot of your pre-5-year-old memories are contributing to who you are today. The culture that you grow up in is contributing to who you are today. And if you come up in a culture that says that this is right or wrong, then that's what, if you grow up in a culture that says that stealing is okay, you're going to grow up to believe that stealing is okay. If you grow up in a culture that says stealing is never okay, you're going to grow up to believe that stealing is not okay. And I know there are, of course, criminals and there are outliers to that, but you're going to find that those are generally referred to as deviant behavior because they're kind of done on purpose to reject society. I think we talked about, I don't remember if it was in this class that we talked about that, but the courage to exist is rooted in the God who appears. So when God disappears, when you recognize this idea that God is dead, then who is it that appears in God's place? Because we're hardwired to have faith. We're hardwired to believe in something supernatural, something larger than ourselves. So when Nietzsche says that God is dead, he's not saying this in a celebratory way. Again, he doesn't believe in God. He thinks that he sees that, as we're going to find out, he believes that Christianity specifically creates weaker human beings. However, he recognizes that when you remove those underpinnings, you now have chaos. And I don't know if there's another example. I mean, all I need to say is look around today. We're saying things that we're saying there's no such thing as truth. We're saying there's no such thing as morality. There's your morality, there's my truth, there's your truth. There are all these different dimensions of things. And then we say, now, go out and live. Well, live for what? Anything that you go out to live for. I mean, for example, you don't have the opportunity at all today to be heroic. We nerf the world so that you don't have an opportunity to go out there and do anything that's meaningful, because we're constantly hovering over people and we're trying to micromanage so many things that you don't have the chance to go out there and make your own mistakes and fail, but also you don't have the chance to succeed and succeed on your own personality, to become the thing that can replace the thing that disappears. Because your job as a human being is to replace your parents. So your parents are raising you up, but the whole idea is that at some point you're supposed to grow past them. Yes, you use those influences, but your parents are going to go away. You're not always going to have your parents. It's kind of like, why do the reason I talk to you guys the way that I talk to you, and the reason I give you guys the things I give you is because you're not always going to have me. And this is why I give you guys opportunities to talk and try to work these things out, because you're not going to have me walking you through life, figuring the difficult parts of life out. I'm hoping that you can get a foundation at least, so that if you decide to pursue the really meaningful things in life, that you've got some skill set for it, some skill set, some experience to do it, so that you can then go off on your own and hopefully get to the bottom of some things that I could never even begin to imagine. In other words, you're supposed to surpass things. The problem is that when you're put out into the world and you're supposed to replace the thing that you never surpassed. If you never learned the things that your parents knew, and yet now they're gone, you're kind of left with this hole of knowledge. And by hole, I mean H-O-L-E, not W-H-O-L-E. There's this pit that's missing. How do I don't know, something stupid. How do I fix a tire? How do I don't know, clear a drain in my plumbing? Or more importantly, how do I discipline my own child when I have one? How do I do these things that I could have learned from my parents? This is one of those dangers of us not having father figures as we're growing up. How do we learn how to be a man? We learn from music and movies? Is that really, I mean, one of my students asked me recently about, I guess several of my students actually were asking me what I thought about Andrew Tate. And whatever you think about the guy, I hope we can at least agree that it's a sad thing that we have to turn to internet personalities to learn how to be a man. In other words, that means there's something else that's missing in the fundamental aspects of our lives, that we have to turn someplace abstract to a personality that isn't right or wrong. We're not judging it based off of that. We're judging it based off of, are they entertaining and are they popular? And entertaining and popular are very different from right and wrong. As we can see, why the rejection of religion? Largely it's because it comes to us with standards that say some things are right and some things are wrong. We don't like that, because that creates a level of responsibility in us. And it's a responsibility that we fear we can't live up to. If God is dead, well then what does that mean I can do? It means I can do anything. But as I began by saying, that's the downside. It also means that I can do anything. But then the problem with that is that, therefore, nothing matters. And there are these two avenues that we can pursue in life. Either everything that you do matters, or nothing that you do matters. And they're both terrifying, because if everything you do matters, then everything you do matters. And you have a high level of responsibility, not just to yourself, but to everybody around you, and especially to the people that you're responsible because you generated them. If you have children, you're especially responsible for them. But then if nothing matters, then yeah, you get the freedom of that, but there's no reward for that. There's experience, and you can have fun and enjoy things, sure, but for how long? Because you're going to get to an age when you won't be able to enjoy things the way that you used to. You won't be able to do the things that you used to be able to do. Your friends will start dying off. And you're going to find yourself lonely. Not just alone, but lonely. So the question becomes, when this God disappears, when you have these doubts, is God really there? And you start to believe, you start to think, well, there is no God. It's just me. Well, now the question becomes, who comes in its place? What's the God that gets created in its place? And I wonder how many of us are prepared to take on that role. Let me say that again. I wonder how many of us are ready to take on that role of God. Most of us aren't ready to to order our own food at a fast food place.
Oh, yeah.
Many of us, we complain about how we haven't figured out yet how to pay taxes and to fill out job applications. And that's the God that you're going to replace the other God with? In other words, have you prepared yourself to become that person? Have you prepared yourself to become the parent that you want to become someday? Have you prepared yourself to be the role model if you want to be the role model someday? Have you prepared yourself to be the business leader or the fill in the blank of whatever it is? Are you working towards preparing yourself for that? And I know what we're going to say. There will be time. But the sooner that you get about the business of living, the more living you can do in your life. The sooner that you get about the business of maximizing yourself, the more of your life you get to live as a maximized, fully realized individual. The longer that we put off growing up, and I don't mean growing up in a we oftentimes think of it in a very bad thing. It's just like, I'm sure many of you have heard this thing, oh, you're going off into the real world soon, and what do you know about the real world? And people complain, oh, you gotta pay taxes, it sucks, you have to get the real world's great, man. You know, if you're living it properly. You get freedom, yes, but then you also accept responsibility, and that is the freedom. It's the freedom to accept responsibility, to become the thing that replaces the other one. But the problem is that we recognize that when we replace the other one, we're not quite as good. And that's the anxiety that many of us are going to have with regards to our parents. You're going to be parents someday, and right now you might be thinking like, oh, I'm going to be so much better than my parents. And maybe. It's just like I think I was mentioning to you guys, if you ever need advice parenting, and you want to know like the way to be a perfect parent, just ask me. I can tell you.
Can you give one?
Yeah, why can I tell you?
Because you don't have one.
Because I don't have children, yeah. Because I'm not a parent, so that makes me an expert. I don't have to actually live with the consequences of those things I tell you. And so right now we might be thinking like, oh, I'm going to be this kind of a parent, I'm going to be so much better. And then you're going to be sitting there one day with like like folding a diaper over the kid's head and not knowing what the hell to do and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. You're going to come to the exact same realization. And then you're going to find yourself in these really hard situations as you're parenting where you're not going to be the person who you thought you were, and your children will not be the children who you thought they're going to be. The situations will not be what you think they were going to be. And now you're going to learn some things about yourself, and you're going to learn some things about your parents. And hopefully you're going to learn some things about grace and kindness and understanding as well. And then maybe if we learn those lessons earlier on in life, we can live more of our lives with those lessons learned. I wonder how many of our parents do that. They sit there and go, let me help you find a purpose in life. Let me help you find a meaning in life. It seems like the most fundamental things.
They don't tell you.
Yeah, but for some reason people get pissed off at me for not teaching you how to read a rental agreement. Yeah.
I don't know if everybody experiences this, but
Yes, probably.
probably, but do you ever take that moment where you realize, oh, my parents are also just winging it?
Your parents are bullshit?
Not that they're
No,
bullshit.
not bullshit.
No, definitely not.
Thank God.
But as in,
They don't know what they're doing.
at one point, they were kids too. At one point, they forgot to ask a question. And they had to live on figuring it out themselves.
It's an important thing to realize. It's like at some point, not too long ago, you guys were in a room somewhere, and when something would fall, and actually for many of you this still happens, you look around for the adult to fix things, or you look around for the authority figure to fix things. And you're going to reach a point in your life when something's going to fall down, and everyone's going to turn and look at you. And you're going to realize and go, oh shit, I'm the adult here. I'm the person, I don't know what I'm doing. That's speaking to what I was saying earlier. Are you preparing yourself to be that person?
Oh, stand up.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'll shake you a little bit. If your parents are still with you right now, at some point they're not going to be. Your parents are going to die. And you're going to be, and I don't know where you're situated within your families, but you might be that person who people now turn to and ask, what do we do? In other words, you're going to be at that funeral, and well, actually, even before that, people are going to look at you and go, this happened to mom or dad ever, and then people will look at you and go, so what do we do? And then you're going to have to figure out what to do. And you're going to have to figure out what to do at the worst possible time in your life. When your mind is not right, when your emotions are not right, you're going to have to think logically and start to organize bureaucratic things about paperwork and burials and things like this. And I guess the question is, what kind of a person do you want to be when that happens? Do you want to be the person who everyone's going to turn to and look to and say, this is a person who has themselves together, and we can trust in this person to do the right thing and to essentially keep everybody else together? Or are you going to be the person who stands there with your hands jammed in your pockets and saying, whatever? Or worse yet, are you going to be the person who's in the corner crying and wailing and actually taking away from the situation and making things worse? Because now people have to go over and comfort you when they themselves are also suffering. So are you going to be the person who's going to make the situation, the world, better? Are you going to be the person who's just kind of like neutral and is just there at the very least? Or will you be the person who makes things worse at the worst possible time? In other words, are you the person who's going to have yourself together such that you can actually step into a tragic situation and make things better? Because so much of life is that. It is tragedy from tragedy. And we shouldn't get caught up in thinking that life is only tragedy. Of course it's not. Of course it's not. That would make things so much harder. But you'll notice that tragedies seem to come out of absolutely nowhere. When my mom died, I remember exactly where I was. I was meeting with a professor, my mentor, Mr. Richards. Mr. Richards has 3 doctorates, and he insists on being called Mr. and not Doctor. This is why I would insist on you guys calling me Doctor, because he's got 3.
Or just Scanlon.
And I just prefer Scanlon. Make it simple, because he doesn't go by Doctor. I mean, I guess you go by Doctors Richards, right? But I was supposed to meet up with him, and my dad called me and told me that my mom was having a heart attack. He was in the process, and he didn't know CPR. He'd already called the medics, and he was just, when I went to the hospital, everyone turned to whatever 21-year-old me and just said, you make the decisions. You figure it out. And that was a challenging week. In 1 week, I lost, well, I didn't lose them, I know exactly where they are. Let's see, my grandmother died on Tuesday, my mom died Wednesday, a friend of mine was murdered Friday, and then another friend of mine committed suicide on Saturday. So this was a bad week. This was a very bad week. And I guess the question becomes, who are you in those kinds of situations? Are you the person that people can turn to because they know that you're a person who has yourself together, that you've developed yourself, that you're a strong personality? Or are you the person that actually makes things worse? My sister was the person I mentioned earlier. Many of you probably didn't even know I had a sister until I mentioned her an hour ago.
You called her a bitch, so
yeah.
That's
No, I called her a bitch.
Yeah, I thought it though.
You call him an asshole.
And she is that person who's sitting in the corner and she's wailing and crying, and because the last thing I said to my mom was, I gave her a kiss and I said, I love you, Mom, I'll see you tonight, because I was supposed to see her that. She said, okay, I love you too. The last thing my sister said to my mom was, I hate you, you're never going to see your grandkids again. So who do you suppose has more to deal with in that kind of situation?
Your sis.
So the question, so you can start to think about life this way, where are you going to be the person who leaves things unresolved because you believe this lie from the pit of hell, which is there will be time, there will be time. I can do it later, I can do it later, I can do it later, I can do it later. There's time for 100 revisions and indecisions that a minute will reverse. I can always go back and change it later. Or you're the person who's going to have yourself together to the point that you don't leave those things unturned. Not from a dark, macabre sense of like, I may never see my friend again, so let me tell them I love them. Not like that.
Like when you're moving.
But by the way, that will happen at some point.
Yeah.
Every friend you have, there will be a last conversation. Every person that you're in love with, there will be a last time that you ever see them. Whether it's because of a breakup or whether it's because of a death, there will be a last time for everything. And there's something that if we understand that and we apply that properly to our lives, it can help us to really appreciate things. It helps you appreciate every moment. You never step into the same river twice. If you can really internalize that, you're never going to, as much as you might hate going over these quotes, I promise you, I promise you this from experience, many of you we'll get a year from now and look back on that and look back on this and say, I really miss having the opportunity to grapple with deep ideas. You know, right now I'm working at, I don't know, whatever, AutoZone, and I really wish I had the opportunity to deal with deep ideas, because there's something that's soul nourishing about that. There's something that's nurturing about that, because you are these two things. You are your body, but you're also your mind. You have to nourish the body, you also have to nourish the mind. And I know this from experience, because so many people come back to me with these stories. I hated them at the time, but man, I wish I had the opportunity to do them. The tragedy is that they don't realize they have the opportunity still to do them. You can still pick up great books. This is just introduction. If you notice at the end of every section here, I give you a bibliography. I tell you where to get these things. I've told you, you want a suggested reading list, tell me. I have a whole list on my computer. I can send it to you, and they're all in free PDFs you can get online. They won't cost you a penny. Or do we see it as just, I got to get out of here? So many people grapple with life that way. I just got to get out of here. Where? Where are you going in such a hurry? I don't know. Well, I'll get there. You know, you're never going to have this day again. In a few months, you're never going to walk down that hallway again. In a few months, you're never going to do a lot of things ever again. But you're going to there will be other things that you'll be doing for the first time. But if you don't learn how to appreciate things, you won't appreciate those first times any more than those last times. And so maybe that's the thing. Maybe there's something here about that, where the things that, the new memories that we replace the old ones with, sometimes the old memories go away because we didn't appreciate them at the time, and we wanted to get past them. But again, what are you in such a hurry for? Life is short. I don't care how long it is. I don't give a fuck what Seneca says. Life is short, man. Life is short because you have the time to do the things that are important. That's true. But you don't have time to do everything. You guys like watching crappy movies, anybody?
Yep. It's the most funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and Seneca would say there's no time for that.
But
so what are you making time for?
He's a bitch.
But there is some good ones.
I could totally kick Seneca's ass.
Yeah.
Because he's been dead for 2,000 years. Dig him up, I'll prove it.
His kick is great.
And you'll piss on his grave too?
That's right. Add him to Shakespeare's list. But Seneca has a lot to teach us about life. The problem with Seneca is he's too much of a professor. He never actually lived. Last thing.
Oh yeah, when you mention throughout life, when you say you'll never know when you're gonna see them again, or when they die or when they go.
No, I'm saying that. I want to be clear about that. There's going to be a time that will be the last time.
Yeah, it will be the last time.
And most of the time you won't realize it's the last time.
Yeah, I get that a lot actually. So that actually really annoyed me, because I had so many times where some relative dies. It's either I don't get a chance to see them again, like I was planning either to visit them, or I don't know what's going on, because back then I was a child, so I didn't even know what death was before, until later on I realized that, and then I feel awful, just could have done something. If I knew, I would have done it. And then later on, I usually get these talks with my dad telling me, oh, when you die, as long as you remember them, as long as you do them, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. And he even gives it down oh, what, if I die, will you remember me? I'm like, yeah, I'll remember you. All the things you did for me, I'll appreciate it. And then if you remember those, then you'll be fine. Then if you remember those, then you'll learn to cherish them. Learn to cherish those people who basically were there in your life. At least appreciate they were there. If they weren't there, then I don't know. Sucks to be them, I guess. For not me.
I'd rather be alive than remembered.
Well, I know.
Hang on, no, but this is the point. I would correct that. I would say that maybe we shouldn't cherish the people we've had. We should cherish the people we have left.
Oh, we have left, yeah.
No, put it in present tense, man, because there's so often we kind of accept that we're not going to understand life until afterwards.
Yeah.
And there's no reason you shouldn't. There's no reason you can't. So much of it's willful. We close our eyes on purpose. We ignore things on purpose. Even as I'm thinking here, we've been talking now for about an hour, close to it. And anytime I talk to you guys, I don't assume there's more than 3 or 4 of you who are paying attention at any given time. I don't think anyone's listening to what I'm saying.
I'm now depressed.
And what's that?
I'm now depressed. I'm just
Why? It's not
reminiscing
you,
now.
it's me. I don't think anyone's paying attention to a goddamn thing I say. I don't think it's going to change anything.
I ignore you
I
on
hope-
purpose.
What's that?
I ignore you on purpose.
I imagine I would too. I ignore myself. I'm thinking about something else right now while I'm talking.
You think of
But-
cartoons.
But hopefully you're not going to ignore Paul Tillich. It isn't about me, it's Paul Tillich. Maybe it's about Jung, it's about Viktor Frankl, it's about these people who are really generating these ideas, yeah.
All this talk reminded me of a little song. It's called "The Last Cup of Coffee," and I really thought of, even though, like you said, there will be a last time where I'll see something or experience something, or I'll be in this place. I like the thought of there being a last cup of coffee, because you drink a cup of coffee to get energy for the rest of your day. And even though it's the last cup, at least you had energy to go through it.
I'm thinking of a song,
Me,
I was thinking of it earlier, actually.
Yeah.
The line says, I know I'll never touch your I should know that I wrote it. I know I'll never touch your hand like this again, or feel your skin in just the same way.
Did you say you wrote it?
Yeah, and I actually wrote to someone specific, and the line says, that's the line, I know I'll never touch your hands like this again, or feel your skin in just the same way. And then I wrote that, and I separated from the person, and then we ended up back together again. And it's like, that was a lie. No, it turns out to be a truth, it's just a truth delayed.
Huh.
Huh.
Well, you think of a joke, can't end on something sad.
Well, I mean, you mentioned
Just when you're
family,
Two
so
of this.
you mentioned family. At this point, we're going to reference Fast and Furious movies.
Friends.
Sure.
We're not
Do you guys know that race car, you spell the word race car forward? It's race car, right?
Yeah.
You spell the word race car backwards, it's also race car. R-A-C-E-C-A-R.
Oh my
Who
God,
told me
that's
that
such a
before?
left
So
turn.
Somebody.
Do you guys know what race car is sideways?
What?
Paul Walker.
Oh no!